On the morning of June 30th, 1908, the sky over the Siberian taiga tore open with unimaginable violence. An explosion 1,000 times more powerful than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima detonated mid-air, creating a cataclysm we now know as the Tunguska Event. This sudden, catastrophic blast released a shockwave that registered on barometers across the globe, cementing the Tunguska Event as the largest impact phenomenon in recorded human history. In a fraction of a second, an estimated 80 million trees were violently flattened across 800 square miles of dense, unforgiving forest in a radial pattern of total, uncompromising annihilation. Yet when Russian scientific expeditions finally penetrated the remote epicenter years later, they found something mathematically and physically impossible. There was no crater, there was no massive impact scar gouged into the earth, and there was absolutely no trace of a meteorite. Forensic data unequivocally proves the blast occurred mid-air, instantly incinerating massive reindeer herds and knocking men off their feet over 40 miles away. The geological scarring is undeniable and vast, yet the physical cause of this localized apocalypse is entirely missing from the ground. So I want you to look at this massive, craterless blast radius and tell me down in the comments. Based on the complete lack of a ground impact, are we looking at a volatile ice-comet that vaporized in the upper atmosphere, or a localized kinetic anomaly that modern science still cannot fully explain? Cast your vote now, because the micro-soil samples we are about to examine completely contradict the standard narrative. To truly comprehend the sheer magnitude and terrifying suddenness of this disaster, we must first examine the verifiable data and first-hand accounts recorded on that morning. The region surrounding the Podkamennaya Tunguska River is incredibly isolated, populated largely by indigenous Evenki hunter-gatherers and a sparse scattering of Russian settlers. According to Evenki oral traditions, the area was suddenly visited by Agdi, the god of thunder, who cursed the land with a deafening, blinding fury. For two Evenki brothers, Chuchan and Cheparin, this mythological terror became a literal reality. Sleeping in their tent deep within the taiga, they were violently awakened by a deafening roar and a sudden, violent tremor that tossed them to the ground. When they crawled out to investigate, they witnessed the forest around them spontaneously combusting. The sky, according to their harrowing testimony, appeared to split entirely in two, revealing a high-altitude sea of fire that engulfed the northern horizon. At exactly 7:17 a.m. local time, witnesses at the Vanavara trading post, located roughly 40 miles south of the epicenter, reported seeing a massive column of bluish light moving rapidly across the sky. The light was reported to be as bright as the sun, casting harsh, fast-moving shadows across the Siberian landscape. Minutes later, the horizon erupted. A blinding flash was immediately followed by a thermal pulse so intense that witnesses reported feeling as though their heavy shirts had suddenly caught fire. The heat wave was enough to spontaneously ignite the resinous pine trees and incinerate thousands of reindeer grazing in the surrounding taiga, leaving nothing but charred bones. Then came the kinetic shock wave. The overpressure wave traveled outward at supersonic speeds, shattering windows, collapsing heavy timber structures, and violently throwing people to the ground across hundreds of square miles. The sound of the explosion was deafening, described by survivors as a relentless barrage of heavy artillery fire that echoed across the vast Eurasian landmass. Seismic stations in Irkutsk, which had only recently been established to monitor global earthquakes, registered violent tremors equivalent to a 5.0 magnitude earthquake. The atmospheric disturbance was even more profound and widespread. In the United Kingdom, barographs recorded the atmospheric pressure wave arriving, bouncing back and forth across the globe as the overpressure waves circled the Earth twice. The Earth's atmosphere essentially rang like a bell. For days after the explosion, the night skies across Asia and Europe were bathed in an eerie, luminescent glow. People in London and Paris reported being able to easily read newspapers outdoors at midnight. High-altitude ice clouds, seeded by massive amounts of dust, water vapor, and particulate matter injected into the upper atmosphere by the blast reflected sunlight back down to the surface long after the sun had set. The global atmospheric disruption was undeniable, yet due to the extreme isolation of the Podkamennaya Tunguska River basin, the unforgiving Siberian climate, and the political upheaval of World War I followed by the Russian Revolution, the epicenter remained completely unexamined by scientists for nearly 2 decades. It was a localized apocalypse that simply vanished into the fog of history, leaving nature to reclaim the shattered landscape. It was not until 1927 that Russian mineralogist Leonid Kulik successfully led the first comprehensive scientific expedition into the blast zone. Kulik was an expert in meteorites, and he was hunting for an iron leviathan. Based on the seismic data and eyewitness accounts, he expected to find a massive crater surrounded by jagged fragments of space rock, similar to the Barringer crater in Arizona. He brought specialized equipment to dredge the swamps and extract the massive iron core he assumed was buried deep beneath the Siberian peat. What his team discovered instead defied all conventions of impact geology and shattered their expectations. As they marched deeper into the taiga, the expedition encountered a dead forest. Millions of pine and larch trees had been stripped of their branches and bark, snapped like matchsticks, and violently pushed outward from a central point. The sheer scale of the devastation was incomprehensible, creating a haunting landscape of silver, rotting timber that stretched for as far as the eye could see. However, as Kulik's team reached the absolute center of the devastation, they found a chilling forensic contradiction. In a localized area directly beneath the calculated point of detonation, the trees remained standing completely upright. They were entirely incinerated, stripped bare of every branch, twig, and needle, but they had not been knocked over. This upright telegraph pole forest provided the most crucial piece of forensic data yet discovered. The explosion did not happen on the ground. The blast wave had traveled vertically downward at the exact epicenter, instantly killing the trees but leaving the trunks upright, before deflecting outward horizontally to flatten the surrounding 800 square miles in a highly specific butterfly pattern. The meticulous mathematical modeling of this footprint, calculated decades later using advanced computer simulations, indicated an airburst occurring at an altitude of roughly 3 to 6 miles above the surface. Despite combing the region for months, dredging bogs, and analyzing thousands of soil samples, Kulik found 0 meteoric fragments. No iron, no massive space rock, just an obliterated landscape and a deafening scientific silence. How does an object possess the kinetic energy to level a region the size of a modern metropolis, yet leave absolutely no macrophysical remnants behind? For decades, the leading hypothesis within the scientific community has been the comet theory. Comets are essentially dirty snowballs, composed of water ice, cosmic dust, and frozen gases. Proponents of this theory argue that a small comet, perhaps a detached fragment of the Encke comet, entered the Earth's atmosphere at an immense speed. The extreme friction of the atmosphere superheated the ice, causing the structural integrity of the fragile comet to fail catastrophically. The resulting rapid expansion of vaporized gases triggered a massive mid-air detonation. Because the object was primarily composed of ice, it vaporized entirely in the intense heat of the explosion, leaving no rocky or metallic fragments and absolutely no crater on the ground. Furthermore, the high-altitude dust and water vapor injected into the atmosphere perfectly explains the glowing night skies observed over Europe in the days following the event. It is an elegant, well-packaged theory that neatly ties up the loose ends of the missing crater. Our mission at Ancient Chronicles HD is to bypass the speculation and analyze the hard, verifiable forensic data left behind by history's greatest cataclysms. We rely on verifiable geological scarring and impossible anomalies to uncover the truth of our past. If you are committed to investigating the undeniable evidence of the ancient world, hit the subscribe button and join the community. While the comet hypothesis elegantly addresses the lack of a crater, modern forensic geology and advanced chemical analysis have introduced a new, highly contradictory layer to the mystery. In the late 20th century, researchers began analyzing tree resin collected directly from the epicenter. Trapped within the hardened sap of trees that survived the extreme periphery of the blast were microscopic spheres of silicate and magnetite. These microspherules contained unusually high concentrations of iridium, nickel, and cobalt. These are elements that are incredibly rare in the Earth's crust, but are highly abundant in asteroids. Furthermore, isotopic analysis of the peat bogs surrounding the epicenter revealed distinct spikes in carbon, nitrogen, and hydrogen isotopes corresponding exactly to the geological layer of 1908. This modern forensic fingerprint strongly contradicts the pure ice-comet model. It heavily suggests that a stony asteroid, roughly 150 to 200 feet in diameter, was responsible for the devastation. An asteroid of this size and dense composition entering the atmosphere at over 30,000 miles per hour would experience aerodynamic pressures far exceeding its structural limits. It would flatten out, or pancake, against the thickening atmosphere and detonate with the immense force of 10 to 15 megatons of TNT. The intense kinetic heat would vaporize the rock instantly, raining down only microscopic droplets of molten material, while the kinetic shockwave physically devastated the dense forest below. Yet highly unusual biological anomalies within the blast zone continue to puzzle researchers and fuel alternative theories. Core samples taken from the trees that survived the immediate blast show a highly abnormal accelerated growth rate in the decades immediately following 1908. Some trees grew at a rate 4 times faster than normal, producing exceptionally wide growth rings. While skeptics logically argue this is simply a natural biological response to the sudden influx of sunlight and nutrient-rich ash after the dense forest canopy was violently destroyed, others point out that similar accelerated biological trajectories have been observed in flora exposed to localized radiation. However, this is where the hard data stops the fringe theories in their tracks. Extensive radiological surveys of the Tunguska region, conducted thoroughly throughout the Cold War and into the modern era, have found absolutely zero evidence of nuclear fallout, isotopic radiation, or abnormal background radiation levels. This verifiable, peer-reviewed lack of radiation effectively eliminates fringe theories of ancient atomic warfare, crashed extraterrestrial technology, or nuclear detonations in this specific region. Other theories have ranged from the scientifically mathematically plausible to the highly theoretical. Some theoretical physicists have proposed that a micro-black hole passed completely through the Earth, entering in Siberia and exiting through the North Atlantic. However, such an event would have left a corresponding seismic exit wound on the planet, which has never been detected by global monitors. Others have suggested a catastrophic annihilation event caused by a localized pocket of antimatter reacting violently with the Earth's atmosphere. While mathematically possible on paper, the stony asteroid airburst remains the most scientifically sound explanation backed directly by the microspherules data pulled from the resin. The Tunguska event is not just an isolated, bizarre historical anomaly. It is a terrifying testament to our planet's ongoing vulnerability to kinetic threats. It is a verifiable, modern-day cataclysm that proves catastrophic resets can occur suddenly, originating from the sky without warning, with enough kinetic force to erase a civilization in the blink of an eye. If an object of that exact size had detonated over a major metropolitan area like London, New York, or Tokyo instead of the remote Siberian taiga, the loss of life would have been measured in the millions, and the global economy would have been instantly paralyzed. We saw a much smaller parallel to this exact kinetic danger in 2013, when the Chelyabinsk meteor detonated over Russia, injuring over 1,000 people and shattering glass across the entire city. The Chelyabinsk object was a mere fraction of the size of the Tunguska impactor, yet it provided a highly sobering reminder of the devastating, uncontrollable power of atmospheric airbursts. The forensic evidence at Tunguska paints a vivid picture of extreme violence, yet leaves us searching the microscopic record to truly understand the exact nature of the impactor. It forces us to confront the undeniable reality that our planet resides in a highly active, highly kinetic shooting gallery. The mid-air detonation over Tunguska left a forensic fingerprint that still baffles researchers today. But it isn't the only time an ancient landscape was subjected to sudden, atomic-level heat. If you want to see the verifiable geological scarring left behind in the Middle East, click the video on your screen right now where we uncover the shocking scientific evidence behind the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. I'll see you there. Thanks for watching Ancient Chronicles HD.